Hi everyone, it's me again, and Squish Gang is present. And today we're back with, weirdly enough, another update on the Def Noodles situation, which is unfortunate for me. So today we're going to do a little bit of an analysis of Keemstar's motion to dismiss that came out as essentially I was preparing to record the last video and didn't have it in me to add that in. And then the comments were saying that they wanted that to be discussed, so that's what this video is for. This motion to dismiss, if you were wondering, came out Friday, August 5th, 2022. Before we get to that, a little bit of housekeeping. Ignore the makeup. I tried to do something cooler. I think I tried it 6 times and it stopped working, so I got sad and did this instead. Links, sources, social media, Patreon, Amazon, all that kind of stuff down below. My beautiful, iconic bestie patrons, names on the screen. And we're going to get into it because I want this to be short. So for this video, we're going to begin with a quick, just general update on what Dennis has been up to for the past week or so, along with, because Ethan Klein did clarify this stuff on the podcast episode that aired on the 15th of August. Yeah, so I recorded this video, and as I was editing, I noticed that I only got to the Def Noodles update of the recent events on Twitter and stuff like that, and the video was already half an hour long, and I had half an hour plus of footage of just the legal documentation and the conclusion. So what we're going to do is we are going to split the video in two, because I can understand that these are getting painfully long to watch. So this is going to be just the recent events on Twitter and the update on the H3H3 podcast. And then tomorrow I will release the legal documentation reading and the motion to dismiss. So I don't know, turn the notification thing on, I guess, if you want to see that. But yeah, thank you. I want to start by thanking everybody for the support on the last video. The more or less generally positive response to it has been really great, and I'm happy that I was able to discuss something and I was able to condense it down to some extent. I also want to address the comments that are like, this video's too long. I counted this morning. I sifted through over 20 hours of content for that video, so to get it down to an hour was kind of about as best as I could do. Drama channels probably have it a bit shorter than I did, so take with that what you will. If you do want something shorter, I'm sure other people could suggest shorter videos in the comments. We'll get into it right now. So after my video came out, Def Noodles went on Twitter and essentially just kept doing the exact same thing that people were criticizing him for in the first place. A lot of weird, poorly executed satirical tweets and offhanded comments that no one seemed to understand. And he was just being cringe and shitty. That's the only way that I could really say it. As of right before filming this, I'm talking 20 minutes ago, I checked and the Def Noodles Twitter account is still up. And it's just doing that weird Twitter news thing that he was doing before, which we'll get into that a little bit more in the actual lawsuit filing. But right now, Def Noodles is supposed to air tomorrow as of filming this, which is the day the video will come out, I would imagine, on August 18th. Def Noodles is trying to film some sort of roast type thing, which I'm not exactly sure what that entails, but that he's going to air that on his channel. And there's a Google form where he's asking people to sign up for it. Def has also mentioned that he's opened a comedy club. So the comedy arc continues despite its poor response. Okay, sis, we love determination. On August 14th, someone tweeted at Def Noodles the following: "You want to educate other on..." There was obviously typos. I'm reading it verbatim. "You want to educate other on comedy so we can understand your jokes. Genius." To which Def responds with, "Go educate yourself at the end of a barrel of a loaded shotgun." So this is a recent tweet that furthered the controversy. It is actually something that Ethan Klein comments on. This was obviously absolutely out of pocket and just ridiculous, and feeds into Def's own cycle of emotional manipulation, I feel to his audience, which we'll get into that a little bit more. It's interesting because I know that if Def Noodles interacted with my content, God forbid, but if he did, that he would say one of the following things to me: "You are parasocial and weird, you're a hater, or you just wanted me to fail." All of these 3 things are wrong. So, because apparently, according to Dennis, you can only have objective comments on somebody if it's not him. So he can comment on James Charles, he can comment on Keemstar, he can comment on Nicholas Diorio, he can comment on all of these different people where he could keep his online life aside. But if you're commenting on Def, it's because you're obsessed with him and it's parasocial. And that is how he would perceive the content. I can almost guarantee on my life if he were to interact with this directly. But he won't, because apparently he doesn't even have time to interact with the content that he comments on. So then he claims that the shotgun tweet got deleted due to mass reporting, despite the fact that once Edwin's generation interacted with it, it said the tweet was deleted by the tweet author. This is a screenshot I found from Repzilla's Twitter account. I will link it down below. Why would you lie that it got deleted by Twitter when it tells you the reason? Like, Twitter's one of the only ones that, like, will show everybody, like, why something got removed pretty easily. Or at least is one of the clearest ones. And then another thing that's weird and happened. Apparently people found out Dennis is 37 years old. He's been lying about his age. But why? I don't know if that's true or not. There was a lot of stuff people were talking about. I'm not going to confirm or deny that. People were also talking about, like, his residency and where he went to school. I'm not going to delve into personal things like that. I feel like that's not necessary, and that might even a little bit bleed into the parasocial nature that he was discussing. So then he released 2 videos in the past week, 10 days-ish. So one of them was called Addressing the Tweets That Got Me Canceled, and the other one was called Addressing the New Allegations. Addressing the new allegations was first. So I'm just going to do really, really quick, top to bottom, what happened in the video. So video begins with addressing comments right away. Something about Addison Rae's dad, and then Dennis goes on that he knows Addison Rae's dad and goes on this weird, angry tangent. There is an aggressive tone to both these videos that comes out very, very instantaneously, essentially within the first 10, 15 seconds. So then he reads a comment about how, essentially, that he equates people wanting him to be better as, like, trolling. So when people are like, I don't watch you anymore because I wanted you to be better, and instead you're just fighting everybody, and he's like, oh, that's you trolling. You're trolling me. If you're saying that, you're trolling. Which he then calls this a logical fallacy. He says this is a logical fallacy top to bottom, saying that he trolls the trolls as a meaning of expression.
Why are you lecturing people still watch you on trolls? Your comment section has been people trying to help you. I don't know what you're doing. This is a logical fallacy from beginning to end. First off, me sharing my thoughts in a comedic manner, making a bit out of trolling the trolls, is me expressing something that I'm going through in the way that I best know how to do. This is my channel, and it's going to reflect my thoughts, opinions, and life experiences. I am not here to make videos for the complainers. I am making videos for the people who support me. The people who support me on Patreon, link down below. The channel members, also link down below. I'm here to serve the people who love my content, not the winos with a misplaced sense of justice or ownership over my content, especially when all they do is watch my videos so they can bitch about it.
We're going to define a logical fallacy. One problem with persuasion is that whether a speaker intend or not, they can make mistakes in their arguments and end up with incorrect conclusions that they didn't earn through valid argument. In the study of rhetoric, we apply the term fallacy to mistakes or errors in argumentations or reasoning. Fallacious arguments are invalid because even though the conclusion appears to follow from the premise, they actually don't. A fallacious argument involves a non sequitur, which is in Latin, does not follow the meaning, and the conclusion isn't implied by the evidence. The argument reasons do not support its claim, making the argument invalid. If an audience notices your fallacies, you will lose credibility and fail to persuade them. In this way, fallacies can damage your ethos. Fallacies are a category of a thing that can go wrong, if that makes sense. Like, for something to be a fallacy, it will then be a specific type of fallacy. Like an ad hominem, or these ones are all in Latin, the ones in this book, but ad personam, ad populum, appeal to authority, appeal to ignorance, etc. Post hoc, ergo proper hoc, stuff like that, right? And he doesn't name anything. Actually, he just says it's a fallacy. But to say that somebody has stopped watching him because instead of trying to correct the behaviors, he continues the behaviors, that is objective fact. That is not a logical fallacy top to bottom. Completely strawmanning that, which is what he did, is a logical fallacy, where he took the one minute point of wanting people to do better as an aspect of a parasocial relationship, fixated on that which is unrelated, and then just ran. That's the fallacious argument. And I literally said verbatim, he knows that a fallacy is a category, right? Like, what fallacy does he even think it is? So he actually did what's called guilt by association. The mistake that occurs when an arguer jumps to conclusions based on evidence that is irrelevant to the point of the issue. Stereotyping is a common example. So he literally took the conclusion that because somebody doesn't like him anymore, that they're obsessed and parasocial and just want him to fail, and that there could be no positive intention towards any sort of critical comment. But yeah, so that was iconic. I just wanted to throw some rhetoric in there because, like, I wanted to, like, research something I was doing. And here's the thing I want to address, too. People are going to say, Mika, you're just a Def Noodles hater, and you've always been a Def Noodles hater. Where? I dare you to find me criticizing Def Noodles at all before the Twitter space. Find it. It's not there. I was not a Def Noodles hater. I didn't give a damn about Def Noodles. That is something that people want to try to make an assumption and cling to something as a means to criticize somebody, to defend the person that they like. Because Dennis is curating an argument or an audience, and he admits this in his video. His real audience are his ride or dies that would love any content that he makes. So he's saying, no matter what I do, there are people that are going to stick with me. Those are the only people I'm going to acknowledge positively. Then he goes on a weird rant about mortality, which I'll put a little bit of that in the video.
All of us are brought into this world for a limited time. In the grand scale of the universe, our existence lasts less than a blip on a radar. Does that make sense? The universe is billions of years old, constantly expanding at an ever-increasing rate for another billions of years, meaning that our time on this earth, if we live to the average amount of years that an average human exists in this earth for, that's about 70 years, is less than a drop of water in the ocean. The ocean being representative of the billions of years in the universe. Now, with all that being said, if we are all in agreement that we have a limited amount of time on earth, and that time is very finite and very short, then what the actual fuck are people doing, wasting their lives doing something they don't want to be doing?
And then he does an actual logical fallacy of appealing to emotion, even though I did discuss that he had done other ones, where he talks about food stamps and how he was poor and now he's successful and that people should respect him because he's successful. And arguably, he even does a sunken cost fallacy where he's like, well, I've put so much into this to be successful and I put in all this work to be successful, essentially saying, thus you should ignore my piss poor behavior and in turn support me further, which was wild. And he said that the viewers disagree with that. He said that you either shouldn't watch him, or if you disagree with him, you should be a silent hater or like a silent watcher, sorry, which was also bizarre. He says everything that is negative is a form of projection, that people don't want him to be happy. And then I just said, you should never only have respect for people who blindly support you. I have addressed a lot of critical comments in my own comment section. I've had DMs of people being critical to me. There are probably people that are still subscribed to me that have DM'd me critically, that I have tried to have these conversations with them, and then 99% of the time it does go well. I will say two completely different, but I've had like a critical comment and then there's like a bunch of replies and then some of them kind of vanish. That's not me. Sometimes things become spam and then they end up in the review thing, but then sometimes they just don't. Like I've responded to a comment and it's like vanished. So take with that what you may. I just want to throw that in there too for even how you evaluate with other creators. Sometimes the comments just vanish. Like maybe I'm just like goofy and don't know how to use anything, but I've looked through all the avenues I think I could look for and they're just like kind of just like die. I don't know how else to describe that. The second video he puts out was called Addressing the Tweets That Got Me Cancelled. This is referring to the barrel of the shotgun tweet. Within the first 10 seconds, again, blames people for missing the point. Everything he does is satire, remember this, which again becomes relevant in the lawsuit conversation. But I wanted to point out to everybody, and this is why I do things like address these critical comments, and you cannot only respect people who are not critical of you, is that the delivery of the message is the responsibility of the orator. This is a fundamental aspect of rhetoric as well. Rhetoric, for those of you who don't know, I always have to say this again, is like the art of argumentation, okay? The rhetor, or the person speaking, is the person that is delivering the message, and it is the idea of delivering the message, and it's responsibility of the person delivering it for it to be successful. It is not the fault of the audience that it's misinterpreted, because that means that you're not doing it properly. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of, there could be a little bit of blurry lines and some issues. The audience is the starting point and a crucial element. So if we read directly, rhetorical communication is not automatic like conversational exchanges. Where does rhetoric fit in the communication process? Consider how receiver or audience functions in rhetoric. The presence of an audience allows rhetorical communication to be about more than the message or the speaker. It presents and adds a key role of the way those elements are perceived. In rhetorical communication, the interaction between two or more self-aware agents, and those agents are not simply exchanging information. They are also trying to make sense of, or better yet, make the meaning out of the communication. As a result, rhetoric is as concerned with both the content of the message and how a message lands or is received by the audience. Comedy, a lot of comedy, which Dennis says, is to like deliver a message, or to for in his case, his so-called satire is supposed to teach you like how toxic and unpleasant the internet can be. But there's two to tango, or it's obviously going to be more than two because like he has like 500,000 subs. But you know what I mean? There's two halves to tango. There's your delivery and then there's your perception. And if you can't land that perception, then you have failed in your delivery. And you can't just keep doubling down. My intention was this, therefore it has to be that. I talked about this, like I made a reference to like if you're juggling or if you're a comedian or whatever in my last video, but I have to keep reiterating that because he doesn't seem to get it.
Was a lot of support in yesterday's video. There were also a lot of people who seem to be completely missing the point. So I feel compelled once again to respond to comments to see if I can once and for all finally clarify any confusion about my stances that some folks may be experiencing. Full disclosure, I don't want to keep making videos like this, but I do want to clear the negativity out of my comments because I think that my real followers should not be subjected to the parasocial weirdness that some negative people are currently indulging in my comments.
Which is so bizarre because one of the biggest things in comedy is working off of your audience. Like that's a very crucial component. And to like refuse to do that is so weird to me. Def Noodles then separates the Papa Gut situation with Keemstar, saying that he just said that Papa Gut looks like a pedo. But Keemstar outwardly outs people as predators. Now, then completely glosses over what he did to James Charles. Now, do I necessarily disagree? Allegedly, no. Allegedly, yes. I'm just kidding. I think James Charles is a horrible person. But can I comment on the crimes being 100% true? Not necessarily. I don't want to get sued. So, but what I'm saying is, Def Noodles was reporting the James Charles victims as if it was factual, trying to be the first person to release, and then fell back on him being a character that could deliver whatever, but then wanted to be the person to leak the first story, which would mean that people would be taking the information from Def Noodles to make their drama videos or to do whatever. You don't market yourself as clearly as something like The Onion, for example. A lot of the things you report on actually happen. That's the other thing. It's you either have, if you're going to be a fake news reporting system, everything needs to be fake. You can't leave gray areas like that. That causes for a lot of confusion. And then you get into situations like this. The Onion, for example, is always fake. Or somebody like a T channel, they tend to think what they're reporting is true. Professionalism with T channels becomes a whole other issue. So if you take mainstream news media, for example, they're reporting everything that they're seeing as true through the filter that they're going to be using. I don't want to get into the semantics of news networks because that's a whole other discussion. That is like really, really excessive and complicated. But besides the point, you can't do both and then fall back on something whenever you need to. Then he does a plea to emotion that they're not my real fans. They'll do anything to this channel to seek and destroy it. And then he says, and I quote, "My videos are not made for the winos." Most people are winos to you. Like, the other thing is, when you're trying to make money, YouTube is entirely free. So you are only making money directly off of view count. This is not something that happens on like other media. Like, let's say you're working on Seinfeld. Why is that the first thing I thought of? I don't know. If you were a character on the show Seinfeld, okay, because I've already said that. Jerry Seinfeld didn't proportionally make every dollar on exactly the amount of people that watched every episode. I'm going to completely make up these numbers, but let's say 100,000 people watched the pilot, 200,000 people watched the second episode, then 110,000 watched the third episode. He's not making double on the second episode and half on the third episode. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, like, it's not proportional directly to the view count. YouTube is one of the most audience-dependent platforms that exist because each numerical view is directly proportionate to the amount of money you're making. If you have other platforms like Patreon or whatever, every direct individual is your 100% correlates to your income. So to function like this is literally incredibly counterintuitive and it just blows my mind. So then he talks about how he's a leftist, but he doesn't subscribe to victim mentality.
What I didn't say was that I was any sort of victim. I may be on the left, but I don't subscribe to victim mentality. I think there are actual victims out there, but I am definitely not one of them. I have been blessed with opportunities that through a lot of hard work have guided me to the level of success that I currently have after years of failing at everything. So no, I'm not a victim. And yes, I did tell someone to go educate themselves at the end of the barrel of a loaded shotgun. And honestly, I think people should say that kind of thing more often to each other. Some people need to be told to go to fucking hell where they belong.
First off, Republicans love victim mentality. Are you serious? They get the gay agendas coming for them. People who are transgender are trying to convert their kids. Every time there's like some sort of progressive policy, they're coming for their rights. So to say that, to point that at leftists is giving fodder to crazy right-wing people or crazy just internet figures. Everybody can have a victim mentality when they want to. 3, again, a red herring, very bizarre, another logical fallacy. And then he just says, go watch something else. But like I just said, with the proportional viewer thing, what happens if there's nobody left? He says, I'm just going to stop making videos if I don't want to. But then in the Twitter space and in previous content, you go on these huge rants about how entertaining is your entire life. But if you're not willing to work with the audience that you're delivering to, are you really an entertainer? So if we go into the H3H3 Productions commenting on this situation, this is very, very brief. I'm going to run off a couple of points. Ethan Klein says he does not like Def's behavior, but he also says that he's not responsible for him. That's fair. I think, was it a cop-out? 100%, but it is fair. Wishes that Def Noodles will stop responding and feeding into the trolls and that it's not helpful and it's counterintuitive. Very fair. Kind of says that Def's being a bit erratic, which I would agree with.
About the Def Noodles thing, I don't know. I just wish he wouldn't get baited. That's all I have to say, really. I don't know if he's going through stuff. I don't know what. But sometimes the internet gets the best of you. I've been there before. And I know how it feels. It's horrible. It feels horrible. So I definitely don't want to dogpile up on him. But I just hope that, you know, it's like, you know what I mean? He lets the internet get the best of him.
Then Ethan, this is where, like, you've lost me. Ethan and Dan essentially say that any critique, like these videos and the content being made is like based off of like clout chasing or dogpiling. And that the only people that are actually against Def Noodles on like a grand scale are the most annoying people on the internet. So kind of just degrading any possible approach or argument that anyone can have or any legitimate criticism that they can have based off of the fact that he doesn't like the people involved.
But the truth is, what's really going on is there's a group of commentary channels that are just, for them, it's like a feeding frenzy.
Nerdy fucking bullies.
Yeah, they're just, it's a feeding frenzy, and they got a big old fucking meal out of this. Now, at the end of the day, it's probably all they care about.
To eat that poo-poo!
You know?
I'm trying to think. It's like all the people going, like, he's acting cringe posting shit like that or whatever, but all the people that he's beefing with are like some of the most annoying, horrible people on the internet too, so don't really want to like throw them a bone either. So that's what
you just did. That's the headline of all their new videos now.
Exactly.
Dan does not speak for me.
I talked about this a ton in the last video. I was agreeing with people like Keemstar and Nicholas Diorio, which is something that I've literally probably never done in my goddamn life. And it's because objectively I can step back and see the perceptions here and see the value in these conversations. But for some reason, other people seem to not be able to do that. And then I know I'm going to have a comment now that I said that. That's going to be like, well, yeah, you just think you're better than everybody. No, I just think people need to be able to take that objective step back. Don't fixate so heavily on ethos all of the time. While it does exist, you can also have somebody you don't like deliver a message that you do like. It happens. So I just gotta say that it was just a big nothing burger. Didn't even mention the Twitter space, which was like a big brunt of the criticism. They just fixated on the like looks like a pedo thing. Well, he just looks like one, doesn't mean he is one. Like the exact same argument that Dennis was doing. So it's a lot of cognitive dissonance in that regard. But yeah, so that's all for that. Okay, so here's the end of the video. for now. I keep the conclusion that I filmed for the other half. And this is just obviously, as you noticed, the update and everything. Tomorrow will be the legal documentation and going through that whole debacle, which the video will be roughly the same length, I would imagine. So thank you for everyone who watched. Sources and everything will be linked in the description. Shout out to my patrons, very iconic. Suggest anything you want to talk about down below, and maybe I'll make a couple more lighthearted videos in the next week or so. But thank you everyone, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye.
Do you think about them all the time because you like them? Or do you think about them all the time because you're stupid and there's literally nothing going on in that thick head of yours? Maybe you need to read a book or get some interests. Follow for more relationship advice.